Hello, I'm Horceror. I want to find out what makes every single killer tick. There's one big glaring issue with that though. I play the Nemesis, essentially only the Nemesis. I physically cannot get thousands of hours of experience on every single character. So, I'm going to be interviewing people that do have those thousands of hours. One for every single killer. Welcome to Stars of the Fog. Alright, hello, and welcome back to Stars of the Fog. Today we're going to be covering a killer from a very well-known franchise, but technically, legally not. Very legally discerned killer, the Ghostface. So, my guest here today is a very notable Ghostface player, Ghostface enjoyer, the master of stalking some survivors. Would you like to introduce yourself and what you're really known for?
Hi, my name's Esskay. I am a Ghostface main from Australia. I've been playing Dead by Daylight since about 2017. I have over 10,000 hours, and
Sheesh.
I think I'm number 2 Ghostface for markdowns worldwide.
Sheesh, okay. And you said you started in 2017, so what originally got you into Dead by Daylight?
I think it was back around when Friday the 13th came out. I think it was just, I really enjoyed that, but I think at the time I realized it was oh yeah, there's only one killer in this one, and I saw Dead by Daylight, I was like, oh, there's a trillion of these. Yeah, so I guess that was the first thing that got me to play the game and all that. But yeah, so it would have been around Freddy or Leatherface at least. Yeah, mostly it was just the licenses that drew me in, I'm not gonna lie.
So you just want a little bit more than just one option, essentially. Okay.
Pretty much. And also being able to choose the killer, because I've always been a bit of a, I've always loved playing the killer. So being at the second I saw that was an option here, choosing it every time, I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah, okay. So Leatherface, Freddy, they have a couple of similarities with Ghostface, but how did we get to Ghostface and become a Ghostface main?
So I guess before Ghostface released, I would practically play a different killer every time. I would never play the same killer twice, which is ironic, considering now I'm mostly Ghostface. But I think at the time, I don't know, when Ghostface released, I really enjoyed his power, and I just played it a lot in my spare time. I only started streaming Dead by Daylight a few years after this. I think originally I remember seeing the tier lists when people telling me they're oh, you're top 4, and I just played it a shit ton in my spare time, and I guess seeing that I was okay, I want to, maybe I can grind this out, I guess. And yeah, so that's what got me into it.
Okay, so what was his initial appeal to playing him besides just the power? You just look at him first of all and you're oh, I love Scream, and then there he is, that's the guy? Or
yeah, that was definitely part of it. I always did say before I guess Ghostface was added, he was my dream character, and I think they brought him in really well. That I remember seeing all the concept powers for Ghostface beforehand, and they always sounded so it's I mean it sounds so silly where it's oh yeah, the Ghostface can call you on the phone, and it's just yeah, but I think they ended up bringing him in in a perfect way. And I always liked Myers back then too, so it's sort of a different take to that, which I thought was much more complex as well, which I was able to solve master.
Yeah, it's a specific target thing instead of oh, now everyone can go down instantly.
Yeah, and you have you also have now you have to worry about being revealed. There's much more stealth involved. You have the lean stalking aspect. There's just so much more to it, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, because Myers is only really stealth in tier 1, and then that's it.
Yeah, pretty much. Everyone can 99 your powers Myers, but 99 is Ghostface on different targets while avoiding being revealed. So definitely a lot trickier. But yeah, back then Ghostface was his add-ons and builds were the most generic in the game, I feel. But he's definitely gotten a lot more interesting now, which I really enjoy. But yeah.
And how long? Because you said you have 10,000 hours. About how long do you feel it took before you kind of really understood Ghostface and I don't know, became a master at your craft type of deal?
I probably had around 3,000 or 4,000 hours before Ghostface even released. I even made Ghostface, but I'd probably say it took me a few thousand hours. I've sort of got a lot of it. A lot of it is sort of just muscle memory, learning the angles and all that, and a lot of it is game sense of DVD in general. Mm-hmm. So I feel I've sort of got the I've got all the Ghostface mechanics sort of down now. I guess aside from practicing new obstacles to lean stalk on like quickly, I guess, whenever they release. But I probably would say like probably like a few thousand hours, like 4,000 hours or so, till like I sort of had everything down and I felt like I'm sort of at that ceiling.
So like a lot more complex than it would seem from just guy with knife.
Yeah, I think a lot of people sort of think of like all M1 killers as like, oh, this is sort of, oh, this guy, it's easier than, you know, a killer like Nurse or Blight or anything. But I think like, I think the fact that you lack that sort of chase power means you have to sort of like, I'd probably be able to like, you know, win games much easier as like Nurse or something, even though I'm not a Nurse main, just because their power is so strong. But I think because like, you know, those weaker killers that lack that sort of chase power, you have to sort of make up with it, which I think makes them like a lot trickier to play in a lot of ways. But also I think a lot of like there's a lot of aspects of Ghostface which are like a lot people wouldn't realize are, you know, fun Ghostface mechanics that are in those sorts of killers too. Like the lean stalking, you can lean stalk while sliding off objects and move around while leaning, which is very similar. It's a very similar angle to the like hug techs and curves you do on Wesker and Blight and all that. So I think there's a lot of aspects of Ghostface that will appeal to those players too.
Okay, I didn't know that Ghostface had like a hug tech-esque thing. That's interesting to me. That's a new news. I didn't know. So while we're on topic, are there any like specific Ghostface techs that are like really well known or some that are less known that you could tell me about?
So I guess there was one that was like sort of patched recently, which I guess it was patched like a few months ago, but one was like if you crouch while kicking a pallet, even though you don't see an animation change, your reveal hitbox actually does shrink in that mode. But that was patched. Like you don't see any change until like you break it, but like you always notice when you get revealed, like while kicking it, and you press the crouch button, it stops.
Okay.
But I think there's one tech is being able to stalk to get rid of collision. So a lot of times it's on standstill. You'd be able to like activate your stalk just to like merge through them, I guess.
That's actually really funny because I just saw a clip of that like today, like 20 minutes ago on Twitter.
Oh wow. I didn't even see that. That's perfect though. Yeah. I guess there's a lot of it is sort of like that. It doesn't have like that you know, chase sort of mechanic where it's like you have to, you know, do some like, you know, Wesker crazy flick in chase as well. A lot of it is sort of like down to like, you know, predicting the survivors and all that.
Yeah.
So one tech which I really like with Drop Leg Knife Sheath, which is the add-on where if you expose a survivor, you get a 10% haste boost, is so like once you set up a 99 stalk and you're looping something, the second they pass that pallet, that's when you expose them because that's when you get that haste and it catches them off guard because they can't go back and drop the pallet. So yeah, being able to like sort of set that up and like get to that point where you activate it and then just like get them stuck in that position is always really fun.
Yeah, I do like it that a lot of these techs aren't really like super mechanical, but more of like a mind game type of thing, because I feel like that also fits into the fantasy of like Ghostface and planning stuff and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, a lot of it might be just like, you know, choosing to hit a survivor instead of stalking them, like depending on what situation you think would be more useful, or sometimes even hitting them and then stalking them after. That way you can like set up the 99 for when they heal up right in your face thinking like, oh yeah, I just healed up, you don't have any stalk on me. Turns out you do have still stalk on them and catches them off guard. A lot of it sort of is like, you can snowball really well as Ghostface for that reason, because yeah, you can one shot down and a lot of people don't really expect, or they might not know that they're 99 stalked at that time, so you can, you know, make some plays off that.
Yeah, exactly. If they haven't seen you, they might not know that they're vulnerable, which is pretty cool.
Exactly.
And I would say that fits really well into his fantasy again, and like his lore, right? His movies, Scream, very popular franchise. Do you enjoy him more for like just raw Dead by Daylight playstyle, or are you like a enjoyer of Scream, a little bit of both? What's the ratio like?
I mean, probably DVD, probably like 80-20 now, I'd say. I really do love the original Scream, but with all the sequels coming out now, I'm a very strong hater of the fifth one, the like Scream 20 whatever it came out. I absolutely hated that movie. I didn't really like Scream 6 was an improvement, but and just hearing all the news with the new Scream movies coming up, how they're like bringing back Stu even though he like technically died, it's like it just feels like they sort of sold out, which is like against Scream's like core principles. Like you're meant to be making fun of the movies that are doing this, and now you're doing it yourself. So I'm much more strict on like much more like judgmental on that.
A little bit of a purist then. I feel the same way about like Halo or something, so I get it.
Oh no, exactly. Yeah, it's like, you know, if Halloween wants to sell out, you know, okay, it's fine. But like, you know, if the movie making fun of horror movies,
Selling
getting
out, it
shit,
sells
and
out. It's kind of like on the nose, you know?
yeah, it's a bit ironic. Like I remember they had a gag in like I think Scream 4 where like they have the Stab movie franchise, which is like
The parody
like,
of Scream within Scream, yeah.
yeah, and it's like they were watching Stab 8, and the joke was like, oh, they're selling out. They made like a trillion sequels, and yeah, they're literally making Scream 8 right now. So it's just I don't think they see that irony.
Yeah, and now there are 8 of them, so.
Yep, exactly.
So what would you say you like the most? Not about like the movie specifically, but like just your character, just like the one thing, your absolute favorite, visual, sound, tech, etc. What is your favorite part about Ghostface?
I mean, I guess there's so many. It's hard to like just pick one. But I'd say like the mechanic of lane stalking and avoiding, or either lean stalking or avoiding reveals, like those mechanics are like it's like it's made a sort of very simple power, but it's a, you know, Ghostface is a whole very simple power, but like, you know, just that lean stalking where it's stalking while leaning off an object is twice as fast. It's just made him like 1,000 times more complex, and
Is
there's
it
like so many
twice?
things in practice.
Is it twice specifically?
Yeah, 2 times the speed. So you basically always want to be lean stalking, unless it's like, you know, maybe 99 someone and you just want to like activate that. The majority of his stalks, you should be lean stalking. And it's like a lot of the skill of Ghostface is like learning those angles, and like if you're nearby an object, being able to like instantly lean off angle without like taking much time to set it up, I guess, but also avoiding reveals at the same time. So, you know, by crouching behind objects or sort of dot to dotting, when you're approaching the object, so then you always have cover, stuff like that.
Well, I mean, a lot of stuff for sure. Just leaning and finding cover, and like it's always interesting hearing what people like the most about their character, because it's never like something that I would just be like, oh yeah, you know, I play Billy because I like to go fast. Like there's always a specific thing, and I really like that every time.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so much. Yeah, it's a lot more than just like just stalking, which I think like is what sort of, it's one thing I really appreciate about Ghostface. Like I really enjoy Myers, but like I think he doesn't, he lacks all the things I enjoy with Ghostface, which is why I like, yeah, it feels like Ghostface is sort of like a Myers if he was like more complex, which I really enjoy.
Yeah. And on the complete flip side of things, what is your least favorite part about Ghostface?
Probably his add-ons, because a lot of his add-ons, so originally Ghostface's add-ons were very, I think they were very rushed, because none of them were like, it changes around his power in any ways, it doesn't do anything special. They're all just like things that the devs could like change a number in, and they had like duplicates of like all of them. So, you know, this one's like stalk speed increase while not leaning, and then they have 3 of those. This one's crouch movement speed, 3 of those. Stalking movement speed, 3 of those add-ons. They're all just like stat changes. But now it's like they've made like one unique one for everyone. But now it's just like you've got just very useless add-ons like cinch straps, which, you know, you keep your power if you like miss an attack, which if you're lunging for an attack, you don't plan on using a stalk, because if you hit them, you lose your power anyways. So, you know, they have like one where it's like, if they're on the floor, it takes slightly longer to reveal you. If they're on the hook, it takes slightly longer to reveal you. Like when those should just be one add-on, they sort of just like spread them out, and now there's just a lot of useless add-ons.
Okay, and while we're talking about add-ons, do you think overall that they're balanced or overtuned, undertuned? I would say they are maybe a little undertuned, just from what I've heard so far. Are any of them like super duper strong, problematic tier, and like what are your favorites to run and what do they do?
I think a lot of them are pretty well designed, which like the few of them that I use are like, I do think they're well designed. So a lot of the strong ones I feel like they don't like break the game, and they can be countered in a lot of ways, but they still can be like pretty strong depending on the situation. So I usually use 2 of mine that I really enjoy are driver's license, which if you expose a survivor on a generator, it loses 20% progress and blocks the gen for 16 seconds. Or might have been 15, I forgot, but it does. Yeah, that's a lot of slowdown, and it also blocks the gen too. On maps like Dead Dog Saloon, where all the gens are sort of like out in the open, it can can be pretty broken, I'm not gonna lie. But overall, it can, like, it's an add-on where it's like, it does a lot, but it can be countered by just like noticing Ghostface and just hopping off the gen. So it's not, it's not like, game breaking anyway. And it's useless on a lot of maps too. One add-on I also enjoy is Drop Leg Knife Sheath, which gives you a 10% haste boost for 5 seconds after exposing a survivor. I think that one, like I was saying before, where you expose them the second they walk past the pallet, I think that one opens up a lot of like plays like that, where it sort of just gives him a bit of chase when they're just like, pre-dropping or just like playing it super safe, which does help. There's also a lot of fun things you can do with that. Like if you expose does stack. So if you expose a few people at once, you can do like some crazy dash towards them, like blight speeds.
Wait, it stacks like the 10% move speed, so you could in theory be a 155% killer.
Pretty much. I mean, it would actually be more than that since it's like 10% of, 115. So
wow,
it's
multiplicative. That's crazy.
I mean, it's probably not like, efficient to like, use or exposes on one.
Yeah, but it's
like
cool.
One situation, but it's still funny.
Yeah, I have never had that happen to me, and I hope it stays that way. I will be honest with you. That sounds terrifying.
Oh, no, fair. I remember testing it out like when it first released and just like doing, just all the haste things, see out truly fast, and it is absolutely insane.
I'm Barry Allen and I'm the fastest man alive.
Exactly. It just looks so hilarious to seeing like, just the regular walk speed. It just looks really silly. It's really funny.
It's got a long stride. And while we're talking about things that you run, what perks do you usually run? And a two-parter, are there any perks that you think Ghostface uses better than any other killer? And what is your favorite personal perk?
So right now, I guess my build, I've been swapping around a few of the perks, but I've been using Agitation, Surge, Play the Feud, and I guess the fourth one I've been swapping around, but now I'm trying out Pain Res. I'm swapping out like the fourth one between Fire Up, Pain Res, and Deadlock, figuring out which one could be like a good one for him. I think in terms of like perks that like Ghostface uses a lot better, he does lack some because I guess he is an M1 killer, so he doesn't have much of a chase value. But at the same time, I think some perks, so Surge I think works really well on him because all of his attacks is an M1 attack, so you're basically getting that value every single attack. And Play the Feud does get a lot of value on him as well because he is, like, if you know how to efficiently use it, and if the survivors play into it, like, a lot of survivors, like, the second they see you, they hold W, which is sort of, like, plays into it. If you're able to, because it's, like, chases are based off distance, so if they just hold W, it cuts off the chase instantly, and you can just get stacks really quickly like that. But if you're efficient with your one-shot downs, and they don't like sort of counter that power, then you can, instead of losing 2 stacks, you're only losing 1. You can sort of like juggle those stacks, which works really well for him. Agitation, I feel like once you start using it, it's just hard to like swap it off just because it feels so satisfying. But there is like a lot of, it still does a bit of everything. Like, you can sort of like be more efficient with the hooks you choose. It counters Sabo completely. It, saves time, just a bunch of different things like that. And yeah, for the fourth one, Pain Res or like just general slowdown, that could like, I've been swapping that around with everything. Like obviously it probably depends on the player's playstyle, I'd say, or whatever's happening in that game. I don't think there's, I guess, I know a lot of people also use coup de grace on Ghostface, which I guess does serve a similar purpose to like Play the Food, where it's like it helps out in chase. I've noticed a lot of like M1 players tend to like run at least one of those perks to sort of help out because
need something,
they don't,
sure.
Yeah, like sure, like Blight, and you don't have like a power like Blight and Nurse and all that, and it's like I know Bomb Pump uses Play the Food on Sadako as well. When you're sort of like lacking that chase power, it's like it is. I don't really like, obviously there's a lot more complexity with Ghostface than just like chase because he doesn't really have that. But if someone's just like running straight to like a safe tile and it's like a pallet and they can just like go trail them one by one, it doesn't matter how good you are at stalking. It's like you can't, you need something to help out with that if they're sort of like playing in that comp mindset, I guess.
I do have a little question about this just because I hate running Play with your food on Nemesis, right? Because like if I pull out my tentacle, like not even swing it, I lose a stack. So do you lose a stack of Play with your food by going into your shroud?
You don't. Wait, so do you lose a stack by pulling out your tentacle?
Yeah, I don't even have to like throw the tentacle to hit someone. Like if I pull out the tentacle, I lose a stack.
That's actually fucked. So I know so many times like what is considered an attack changes. And I mean, Play the Food on Nemesis, like I've never used it anyway. Because I guess you guys sort of attacking 3 times.
Yeah, most of the time.
Oh yeah, fair.
I don't want to use it anyway. Yeah, 3-hit killer, exactly.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah, it's super like it's entirely what makes it good on Ghostface is like the fact that he doesn't attack as much and he doesn't have like, it's not like Hillbilly where he chainsaw dashes. Every time we do that, he'd lose a stack. So he doesn't attack very much, and when he does, he one-shot down. So that's sort of what makes it good on him. And yeah, it's a perk that's entirely dependent on the killer you're playing. Like Trickster, every blade you throw, you'd lose a knife, so it's completely useless on him. But it works out on like other killers, I guess. I remember throwing clown bottles at one point, like you'd lose stacks, and like every time you Doctor Shock, you'd lose a stack. Like there's so many different, it bugs out all the time. Yeah, it's like ridiculous.
For sure. It's kind of one of those perks, I guess. And while we're talking about things that bug out, does Ghostface specifically have any like egregious bugs or like small bugs, little bugs, bugs in general?
Right now, for the past like 4 months, I think right now, this isn't like a egregious bug, but it's, during his Mori, his camera is invisible, which is still really annoying because, it just sort of ruins the Mori every single time. I see all the other killer mains like for like, Knights and all that they have a whole list of bugs, and it's so I feel like
Pixie's list of bugs.
Yeah, and I feel entitled going like, oh, my camera doesn't work, but it's like I do want the camera fixed. Every time I look at the patch notes, it's never there.
That's really funny though.
Yeah, it's really annoying, but it's like pretty silly either way. He does have I think this does affect other killers as well, but I guess it's more hurts Ghostface more. There is a bug where sometimes chases don't start, where it's like, you're sort of like running in front, the survivor's in front of you, you're running in front of them, and, it should be starting a chase, but it just doesn't. Which, if you're like, if it is the obsession and I've got Play the Food, then it does just kill that perk. But also, even if it isn't, it's like, okay, I don't get Bloodlust, I don't windows don't block, sometimes it could be one of those safe windows where it's like, if they want to be a dick, they can just hold me there like permanently because it just doesn't block. But yeah, that's the bug that's like, that's been a thing for like a year now, and they still haven't fixed it, which is really annoying. But yeah.
Wow. Just not start. Yeah, I get frustrated when it's working as intended and I'm just a little too far away and it's not starting chase. So like never starting chases. I don't even know if that's Ghostface specific, because I do very occasionally get that.
I'm not sure. I've had like some games where literally not a single chase to start all game. Sometimes eventually
never that bad. That's awful.
I have no clue why it does. I think it does affect every killer, but obviously, like, killers that are like M1 killers, also not being able to get Bloodlust too. It's just like, which are all like sort of aspects where it's like, you can still handle it without it, but it's just sort of like a, fuck up a chase or a game or something,
Yeah.
So it's still annoying either way.
Still annoying for sure. And speaking of annoying, you said very early on that, you came to Dead by Daylight to play killer, right? So do you play Survivor at all?
I do play, I don't play as much, I guess, on stream when I stream, but I do play some in my spare time now. I guess just like when I'm playing with friends and all that.
All right.
So I'm probably like 80% a killer main. I guess all just depends on like how, sometimes my friends just have like different, we have sometimes where it's like we want to play DVD, or I guess we've been playing a lot of like Marvel Rivals lately. So we haven't really, I played a bit off stream, but like not as much. Since 2v8's a thing though, and like killer queues are just like abysmal. Been playing a bit of more Survivor though, which is, I'm still really annoyed about that they still haven't fixed the queues every time they bring this in.
They did just announce today that they were attempting to do something else about that and see what they can do about it. Increasing the bonuses for Survivor and making it more enticing.
Hopefully. Oh yeah, I'm just seeing that now. Oh yeah, just like 50 minutes ago.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you actually, so when you're playing Survivor and you get against a Ghostface, do you enjoy playing against him? And why or why not?
I think it's sort of a mix. I do enjoy versing them. It's always fun because there's so many mechanics I sort of like know myself. Whenever I verse a good Ghostface, it's always really fun because there's so many mechanics I sort of like know myself, which I can sort of play around, which is always very fun. But I guess he isn't like my favorite. I absolutely love versing Wesker. I think anytime I verse him, I'm like, it's just a shit ton of fun, regardless on like if they're sweaty or not. So like the chase mechanic, I like revealing as Survivor. I can notice I've seen a lot of people say Ghostface's reveals inconsistent, but as like playing Ghostface, I can absolutely say it's consistent. Every now and then there might be a weird reveal, but same with Huntress, weird hitbox every now and then. like I'd say it's very consistent, but it's hard to tell like what reveals Ghostface as survivor. It should be much more clear for that, which I think is one thing that I think a lot of people don't like about it. But yeah, I enjoy versing him, but there's a lot of like chase powers like Wesker, which I think are much more fun to verse.
Okay. Not necessarily when you were playing against Ghostface, but when survivors play against Ghostface, what do you think is the most frustrating part about playing against him?
I'd probably say that I guess I think a lot of people like get frustrated by the reveal mechanic, which is one thing.
Because you did say it is consistent, but it sometimes feels inconsistent. This could be something like a misconception, but like sometimes I feel like I'm staring at him and he's just not getting revealed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. No, even like for me, I mean, maybe if it's like, I've got like 5,000 hours of against first in Ghostface, it would be a different story. But like even for me, sometimes the reveal's a bit weird because a certain percentage of his body has to be like visible to the survivor. So that's why crouching is also a really useful mechanic, being able to like crouch like behind objects to also just it makes it like smaller on your screen too. Just even like some long thick grass on like Dead Dog Saloon or like Swamp is enough to like, cover the reveal. So I think they do need to like, while it is consistent for Ghostface, I think like they do need to make it like more clear like how to reveal things for survivor. A lot of times the way I sort of play it is I keep survivors 99, and even if they're revealing me, I don't expose them. I only expose them the second before they reveal me, which that way is like the best way because the second you expose them, it starts that 60-second timer. And I'd rather, it's the best decision is just always keeping them 99, and the second you're about to hit them, that's when you expose them. That way you don't have to worry about that timer. If you want, you can like leave chase and go for someone else and you still keep them 99s. People who are exposed also play much more safe too because they realize they're one shot down, so they're like, okay, I gotta play super safe pre-drop so then I can like outrun this timer. So it's that mental thing too where you don't want them to sort of like know they're 99s and might think they can get an extra loop if they greed it or something, And
then you hit him with the drop leg knife sheath, you get that 10%, you down him anyway.
I think a few people that can be very frustrating to verse if they don't realize they're 99s. That aspect where it's like I expose them the second they're about to reveal me, I think that would piss a lot of people off too because it's like they edging them, they're about to reveal me and then boom. Yeah, so I think that pisses people off a lot.
And this might be a misconception, but I just want to ask because I don't personally know off the top of my head. When you expose a survivor who is like, say, 90% of the way through revealing you, does that just like stop them from revealing you and you stay in stealth?
Yeah. They can't reveal you when you're exposing them. There is a bit of a delay. So there's a delay. So they've made it like after the PT. How long have you been playing? Do you remember the PTB Ghostface? Any chance?
No, I started I had 100 hours in 2017, and then it's 2021 onwards.
Oh, you're good. It was like back when Ghostface released on the PTB, he was like the worst killer in the game. He was incredibly bad. There was like not even just like he had a 45-second cooldown. Every time he went to stealth, it would tell all the survivors. You'd hear like a noise, sort of like wraith. There was just so many terrible things like that. But one thing, it's like the reveal instantly started the second he's anywhere on your screen. So it meant like survivors can just spin their camera around and then they'd hear the sound when they're like Ghostface is like near. So they made it where it's like he has to be in the center of your screen and there's a delay, so you can't spin your camera around. It wants to make sure you personally see Ghostface. But to make up for that, there's a delay with like the reveal cutting off, so it evens out, I guess. So yeah, but that like 0.1 millisecond or like that 10 millisecond delay, it means like sometimes you can expose them and they reveal you at the same time.
Okay.
But for the most part, it's like, if you expose a survivor, it cuts off the reveals.
And would you say there's any common misconceptions, like the one I just brought up, of course, but like something that's a lot of players just don't know, something that people could be actively complaining about, but you're like, okay, guys, I have this really obvious counterplay. You could just try this. Anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'd definitely say like, the reveal mechanic is something that is like not too clear. Like I see a lot of people, they stand out in the open while trying to reveal them. And like, even though the reveal's not working while I'm stalking them, it's like they just keep on standing there hoping it magically fixes it. I'd say, if you're not revealing Ghostface, I mean, first off, don't let him stalk you while you're trying to do that. Because even if you do get the reveal, he's going to have you like, 99 if he's leaning for like 75% or so. I'd say like one thing I'm seeing a lot of like people talk about is like play the food on Ghostface recently. what makes it good on Ghostface is the fact that, like, you know, I mean, he lacks chase power, which is one, but also people play into it. Like, a lot of the people that complain about it, they play into the perk perfectly. Whenever you play in your face, and it's like, you know, you're working on a generator, you see Ghostface approach you, you just run away to a safe pallet, and then, like, the second he leaves, you run right back. Every time they players sort of do that, that sort of plays into the perk. So, you know, just running away, period. Don't just, like, you know, run to safe pallet, run back. Not doing that does, like, counter the perk a lot.
And it does kind of matter if you're the obsession, for sure.
Yeah. Also, just countering Ghostface is, if you're able to counter Ghost, like, the only thing that one of the biggest things that makes it good is being able to one shot down. So if you're a good team and you're able to, like, consistently get reveals and sort of play around that, or even, like, you know, use stuff like Dead Hard, which, you know, if you Dead Hard, you lose a stack. Just, you know, anything like that, just doing that alone, countering Ghostface, that counters the perk as well.
So,
yeah.
So Ghostface is very much, I feel like a lot of people like him, you know? So how frequently do you run into, like, fans or antis of your killer, and how do you feel the community feels about Ghostface in general?
I come across, like, I guess, like, people you like or dislike. I mean, I think, like, no matter what killer you play, you're going to come across people who don't like them, which I think is, like, a thing with any killer, really. So that's, like, why I don't like the aspect of, like, you know, people having, like, DC killers they DC against, like, you know, their own, like, everyone's got their own personal 3 or 4 killers they despise that they DC against. You know, 4 different survivors. You know, if everyone has their own 3 or 4 different killers, then it's like, that's like 12 killers, and all you need is one of them to just have, like, you know, one of them to leave just to ruin the game for everyone else. And Ghostface is a pretty, like, for the most part, he is one of the more liked killers, I'd say. And I still get people who, like, do that shit a bunch, which is, like, yeah, it's annoying. But yeah, I definitely do come across a lot of people that do enjoy versing Ghostface as well. So I'd say it's about 50-50.
Okay.
People who dislike versing certain killers are going to complain more, though, than someone who likes them.
Yeah, I mean, that could go for anything, though, really.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what are your thoughts on the Going Next epidemic, and about how often do you experience people going next against Ghostface?
I think it's extremely silly because honestly, like, I think a lot of it is just sort of like that sort of mindset where it's like people, you know, if you're that mindset sort of grown where it's like people the second, you know, they're very picky with the killers, and people just choose like, oh yeah, people realize how easy it is to just go on to another game if they don't like a certain killer, which just ruins it for everyone else. So I feel like it is sort of selfish. I feel like a lot of it, like, I don't say this as like a bad thing towards the killer. Like, in terms of Skull Merchant, I think the worst thing that happened when she released was, like, normalize that. Not that, like, people sort of normalize the fact that it's okay to leave against certain killers. And now it's like, you know, everyone's got their own 3 or 4 killers they dislike, so everyone's leaving against them. And yeah, even generally more liked killers like Ghostface just get a shitload of DCs. It's really fucked.
Yeah, I just kind of, I don't even know how they would fix it. There's, like, a lot of things. It's just, yeah. I actually do think that the tweet we got today about the transparency on, like, 2v8, I do think that's really good for, like, how they're going to be moving forward, because I feel like their communication with the community is something that definitely needs to improve. Because, like, a lot of the time it's just like, okay, but why did you do this? Like, no one asked for this. But, like, this type of thing is like, okay, we notice this didn't exactly go where it wanted to. Here's what we're going to do going forward. And then, like, they're communicating it. And I think that's good.
Yeah, they've definitely got a lot better with that sort of stuff over time. There's been a lot of things where it's like I've sort of hoped that they've been more, like, you know, been more open about it. But I guess there are so many different, like, things to worry about, which I can sort of understand. And then it's like also, you know, I know it is like, you know, it's sort of like that aspect where it's like, you know, sometimes being more transparent, like, it causes like, you know, they might say something and then it's like people go like, oh, but didn't you know, plans change, and then it becomes like an issue like that.
Yeah.
I can see like both sides to it, but yeah, it is nice that, like, you know, they're being more open with it. I feel like they just need to sort of like have like higher penalties for, like, I think, like, in terms of, like, you know, being able to kill yourself on hook. I think it's like having it where most people, for the most part, all they do is, like, you know, once they're about to go in second phase, they try and escape. They should just have like one chance to escape when you're about to go second phase.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. That's kind of where I'm going with it, with like a last chance mechanic. Like, if no one's coming to get you, or if you're in the last 10 seconds of your first hook, then yeah, go for it. And then you could increase the percentage to get off.
Yeah, I like the unhooking mechanic, but yeah, that's like, for the most part, the only thing people like really use it for when it's like there's no hope. So like I hope they do change that. And I think people would enjoy the game like when you remove that option of leaving the game early. People like, you know, it gets that idea out of people's mind, and then it's like people enjoy the game more. I've been in so many games where it's like, you know, people like see it's like, oh, it's a nurse, and they instantly DC.
And then it's a nurse playing nurse for the first time with no add-ons, no perks.
Yeah, they're like very bad. It's like, oh, holy shit, like, you know, we just like, you know, it's like an average nurse, and it's like we just barely lose. And it's like, okay, well, if we had a fourth person, you know, we would have fucking won this. And yeah, just so many games like that, which is, yeah, it's just really annoying. Like, it's, you know, it's just selfish, I feel like, because not only is it just bad for the killer, but it's like, you know, you got 3 other survivors too, which you just saw fucking them over too. It is like a community issue. It's nothing like, I don't think anything specific in the game is like causing the issue right now. Like,
yeah, I don't think there's like a silver bullet to just fix it overnight, but it would need to be like lasting changes type of deal. Yeah,
well, it's just they need to do something to get people out of that habit. Like, there's nothing, you know, in terms of like, I've seen people say it's like, oh, it's because of the slugging epidemic, but it's like, you know, if you're not getting people DC before they're even slugged, you know, it's like, then there's been so many worse metas. It's like, in terms of like, people have gone to the habit of DCing, and like now people have to get them, like people have to get out of that habit.
Yeah.
If once you remove that option and like that people get out of that habit, I think people enjoy the game so much more too. So they just need to figure that out.
I don't really have a great segue for this one. I'm just going to be real with you. So how do you feel about your killer's cosmetic options and how much they have? Do you feel like they don't have enough? And if you could choose a single cosmetic with full executive control to be made, what would you have made? And what's your current favorite set to wear?
I'm pretty like fortunate being a licensed killer main, and like, you know, Ghostface, he just gets a lot, which is really nice. I do, one thing about Ghostface's cosmetics I'm not a huge fan of is a lot of them just don't mix and match perfectly well. Oh no, actually no, a bunch of them do, but like one thing that, okay, one cosmetic in particular that really pisses me off that they added was the cat mask cosmetic. I love it, but
you're not rocking with the Catboy Ghostface.
I feel like they could have done it so much better, because it's a you know, it's a kitty Ghostface, so you're not really doing it too seriously. But then it's like they made it sort of like gold metallic, where it's like they just go all in, make it pink, give it a. Also, it clips with every single cosmetic. I don't think there's a single cosmetic that the cat ears doesn't clip with.
Dang.
And they're selling it by itself. So, you know, if you're selling it by itself, you're sort of implying this is meant to be mix and matched. And it clips with everything. So, you know, just bring it. It should have came out with a cosmetic of its own. Like, you know, make it like purple or even like fucking pink. Give it a Ghostface cosmetic, the cattail. Like, they should have just went all in, I feel.
Just full send it.
Yeah, all kitty Ghostface. It's like, we got Dirtface. It's like, is a kitty Ghostface like too far? You know, get that like girly pop Hello Kitty money. Like, that would literally sell so fucking well, I feel. Like, I don't know why they played it so safe.
It would go pretty well, I'm not gonna lie.
My favorite one right now though is the brown cosmetic that came with the rift though, with the red gloves. And I run that with the masquerade knife, which is his best knife, easy in my opinion, and the devil mask.
All right, okay.
I just really like the devil mask. Oh yeah, another cosmetic I'm not a huge fan of is the deep rift. Well, the deep rift one, I just want to complain about that. So the deep rift, they make the recolors like light blue, except for like the recent one. So like Ghostface's rift one, it was a metallic black and red, but for the blue recolor, instead of swapping the red, they swapped the black, so now it's like a light blue and red. I don't know, you know, if they swapped the blue, a black and blue would look pretty cool, but they fucking just swapped the red, they swapped the black, so now it just looks like dog shit, and it's like, I can't imagine anyone running it. It annoys me so much.
And do you think he has enough cosmetics, or do you think they need to add more?
I wouldn't complain about more cosmetics. I think like Ghostface, like the licensees have a pretty good relationship with each other, I'd say. So, you know, more's not better. Oh yeah, in terms of like a dream cosmetic, I guess. Okay, so I mean, I've always wanted like, you know, some like, you know, purple one particular, but At the same time, I'd say like I'd also really want to Scream cosmetic if they managed to get the license of that, because the classic one is very different from like the one from the movie. It's like, you know, the one from the movie doesn't have that belt. It's more sparkly. There's a lot of differences when you look at it, but I think they can also do some like cool touches where it's like they get the Roger Jackson, the dude who does like the voice on the phone, to do some like voice lines. I think they can like justify making it legendary without it, you know, with it being different enough from the classic one, I guess, if they manage to get the Scream license.
The actual Scream license, because ours is kind of like legally distinct Ghostface.
Yeah, it's like sort of like technically not, but it still is. I think I remember telling you about on stream, but I'm like convinced that the license that Dead by Daylight lost was the Scream license. There's so much things pointing towards that.
Little tinfoil hat
Like,
for us there. Not proven,
yeah.
of course.
Well, yeah, when Ghostface was originally leaked, or like Dead by Daylight ended up putting him in a PTB by accident, like a mid-chapter patch, and then they quickly removed it.
Oops.
I still don't know how they fucking managed to do that, but like he was very, you know, his Mori had a flip phone, like a camera, like a phone Mori instead. All his perks were Scream references. Like there was one called like Simple Rules, or there's like a Simple Formula, which is like a callback to like Randy's Rules of Horror. Anytime M-Code, like, or like they mention, like someone mentions Scream in an interview with M-Code, he gets really squeamish. He's like, it's licensing, you know, I can't really talk about that stuff. Let's move on, you know. I'm like 90% sure that like that was the license they've lost.
Maybe someday. So when we come to Ghostface, is there anything that you would change about the killer itself? Like accessibility, kit balance, vibe, anything at all? Of course, like the license would be nice, but is there anything you would just completely change?
So I guess like I would like some more unique add-ons, some like, or even just some that are more useful to some degree. Even just like some add-ons where it's like if you expose, like down someone while exposed, they get like mangled and hemorrhage. Just even basic ones like that, because I think so many of them just don't really aren't very unique for Ghostface. Or they're unique, or they all do unique things, but they just, so many of them just don't benefit Ghostface to anything at all, really. I feel like, you know, it might be a good idea to give him some chase in his base kit, just and then he does have like, because there's so many different things with drop leg that like sort of makes him more complex, which I really enjoy. And they have like sort of done that for, you know, Trapper, you know, when he places a trap. I know this isn't really, you know, chase, but he does get haste for that. I think having something similar to that vein for Ghostface could help base kit, so he's not just like an M1 killer. He's got like a little more going for him. Yeah. Just some add-ons like that. I think it could be nice to make the revealing like more clear for the survivors, but at the same time, I think Ghostface is like a sort of weak killer. So it's like sort of tricky in that vein where it's like, you know, you don't want to make it like too easy. I've got like a few different, like, yeah, I guess in terms of add-on ideas, I thought it could be cool to have some sort of like, you know, add-on where if you expose a survivor, you know, it could be sort of like overclock sort of thing from like Singularity, where it's like, you know, kicks pallets super fast in that vein, like can speed through like that, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess just more add-ons that, you know, sort of like change him up a bit. Yeah, that aren't just like, you know, because there's so many just do so little. I think it's always like nice to like have like, you know, different play styles and all that into it. So it's kind of tough when it's like, you know, he's got so many add-ons, like fast 10% faster crouch speed, which is I can barely notice it when I'm using it. So yeah, I think that like about sets it for like, I guess the things I'd change. I think I do enjoy him for the most part. It's okay to have some sort of like killers on the weaker side regardless. You know, he's never going to be like, you know, A tier, S tier, like Nurse or Blight or anything, unless they, you know, rework his power completely, which I wouldn't really want them to do. I think it's okay. You know, I'm a good killer player. Like, I think no matter, if you're a good player, like you can get like a ton of wins, like even on the weaker killers. So it's not like, you know, he desperately needs it. He's on the weaker side. It could be nice, but at the same time, like I'm okay, like if they don't.
How would you rate him strength-wise, personally?
I'd say I'd probably put him like a little bit on the lower side, but I would say like it's hard to say because like obviously I've put a lot of time into Ghostface, so like I could get a lot more value out of him than most other players. But at the same time, like, you know, if I put this much hours, you know, if I put this much hours into any particular killer, then maybe it's like this, you know, I'd probably be saying the same thing about them. He is on the lower side, but if you're a good player, you can still manage, I'd say. Some maps he does a lot better than others if you're a decent player as Ghostface.
And do you feel like any of the maps specifically changed that at all? Like, what would your favorite maps for him be?
So I'd say so obviously indoor maps are good for him. Also, mostly just because like I think indoor maps are very strong for killers overall, just because they're much smaller. They tend to be like much smaller and all that, but also because of his stealth. I'd say maps, Dead Dog Saloon as well is really good for him, but I guess it's also good for killer overall, which is like, he's an M1 killer, so I think that's the case for a lot. I'd say Autohaven though is one that is really bad for him, just because of the map. So all the loops are very low to the ground. You've got those like, trash pile loops where it's like, they're all jagged, so you can't really lean stalk on them. And they're designed in a way where it's like, you can't really stalk above them unless you're like really close to it. And you can really easily reveal him. Also, they're just, I think for the most part, the survivor side, like as a whole, majority of them, yeah, generally Autohaven specifically is extremely bad for Ghostface. You can still manage for a lot of times, but yeah, just the loops, the way they're designed, they're just really bad for him.
Indoor map's good, some outdoor map bad. Okay. And
yeah, bad ham's terrible. Like, just
well,
same.
Yeah,
I think it's like,
that's just bad ham. That's not even. That's
yeah, pretty much.
That's just how it goes. I don't know if you've done any, but how do you feel about win streaks on him? And how do you feel that compared to other killers, he usually does in win streak settings?
So I've been doing I've been trying to get into it right now. I've always, at first for a long time, I was sort of against win streaks, but like now I'm just sort of like, I just like having a bit of like stakes to games and all that, I guess. So I think he does go he doesn't go as well as like other killers because he does like lack chase power, I guess. A lot of times win streaks, they generally tend to end from like, people sniping like an extremely good team, which I think is like completely fair. He still can do well on them regardless of like what killer it is. Yeah, right now for like my win streak, the highest I've gotten was 108, which was a while back. Like it was like 6 months back. So like, because once I got to 100, I'm like, okay, that's what I want to go for. I'm happy. So now I'm just sort of like, but now I'm like, since it's been a while, I'm trying, I'm thinking like, okay, let's see if I can still reach that. Let's see how high I can get, since Ghostface has been buffed since then as well. But yeah, I don't think it's really too possible to go for those like crazy high, 1,000, 2,000 win streaks like you see on Billy and all that. Mm-hmm. But so many times I just lose it just because like I might just have one game I'm not like really paying too much attention to, and then it's like 3 gems pop. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta lock in.
Yeah, it's like a marathon, not a sprint type of deal for sure. Yeah,
you just have one game, just one bad game. I'd say at the same time though, like a lot of it is luck based, or just in the hopes of like you don't come across an extremely good team or on an extremely bad map and all that. You can definitely still do win streaks on them and all that.
And not general advice for win streaking, but if you could give a new player picking up Ghostface for the first time, just like, I'm not like a 5-paragraph essay, but like a couple general tips for them, general advice, what would you give the new players?
I'd probably say get in the habit of trying to practice like lean stalking, because that is like one of his biggest mechanics. Only expose them once you're like, try and not expose them from too far away. At the same time though, I'd say it is like, I know a lot of Ghostface players, if they do struggle with stalk, they usually use their stealth more so, which is like not the best way to play him, but like, if it helps you in the short term, you definitely can still use him as a stealth killer for the most part. But yeah, I'd say like at the same, if you're not lean stalking though, if you're stalking twice as fast, it's like less time for them to see you and reveal you as well. If you're struggling with like, people revealing you, you've got that aspect as well. I definitely say like the add-ons Philly and Walleye's Matchbook are great for beginners because they're common add-ons, and it gives you a shorter cooldown, so it's less punishing if you get revealed, and it's you stalk a little bit faster as well. Yeah, unfortunately, Ghostface doesn't have like much add-ons that like change him around too much, so it can be kind of rough. Or like, yeah,
it just like enhances your crouch or your stalk, but it doesn't like change you doing something different.
Yeah, pretty much. It's yeah, so it's like I don't think faster crouch movement speed is going to benefit like new players at all. Some of the like a few of his good like purple ones like drop leg and drop leg and driver's license, I'd probably only say like once you need to be able to like, you get the value when you expose them. So like first, don't worry about those add-ons at first. Learn
how to expose them before you use the expose add-ons. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, a lot of those Ghostface's add-ons are sort of like that, where it's like you get value after exposing. So yeah, focus on like exposing first,
Right.
and then sort of do the rest later. Look into those ones after.
So how has the game changed around Ghostface? So that means like updates, buffs, and nerfs to him specifically, but also how has the game changed around him? So like perks or maps or full reworks to his power, stuff like that.
I guess in terms of Ghostface, the changes he's gotten, he did get a sort of major one. Like I think it's like a year and a half back, like 2 years back now. But for the most part, he has like stayed pretty like relatively the same. Yeah, whenever they change Ghostface, it just seems like what they do is like they just reduce his cooldown, which I think is like they've done that like so many times. So I'm just hoping
Another one.
yeah, it's that's like the only change they can manage to do. I'm kind of worried because I feel like I don't think they're gonna do it again. But I think those changes I'm not as much of a fan of because I think it only benefits like newer players who struggle with Ghostface being revealed. And aside from that, it's mostly quality of life. Like no matter how much cooldown reduces he does, it isn't, he still is fairly weak killer just because he struggles in chase. So that's why I've thought drop leg, the partially base kit could be nice, like could be a really something that benefits him a lot. But at the same time though, that just means like that's one less add-on like a lot of Ghostface's players will bring. So for the most part, he does need like some add-on changes. Overall in the game though, I think the game's gotten a lot better for like killer players since like I guess he released, because early DBD was very survivor sided. So the faster kicking speed like in the 6.1 update a few years back was like really huge for him. Being able to like, just maps being changed so they're less like, they were like less strongly survivor sided like back in early DBD was like, it has been really nice for him as well. I think when people like nostalgic to old DVD, they forget how bad it was in that sense, where you've got like 20 pallets just around the middle, all safe.
Literal infinites that hard for distance, BNPs completing gens. Like
I think people will see they're a little bit nostalgic for the old animations, all the old lighting, but like that's like the only thing people like miss, I guess. Like I can't like old DVD was like fucked. Yeah, I still like it, but it was like I enjoyed it back then, but yeah, the lighting back then it was so incredibly dark. So like the old maps, like they look cool in some ways, but gameplay wise, like so many times you'd be chasing someone, they'd just disappear in front of you, and it was so hard to keep track of everything. It was absolutely awful. I'd say those over time, like the game changing like that has been so nice. For a long time I didn't really use much like now, since I'm doing a bit of a streak, I use like 1 or 2 slowdown perks, but for the most part I generally, like for a long time I never even used slowdown at all. So I guess because of that I didn't really like all the eruption changes, all those metas never really affected me too much because I never used those perks anyways. For the most part all the killer changes are like that, they've all been relating to that, and I've been using a lot of like I don't use those perks, I'm fine.
For sure. So going a little bit back to the Ghostface, do you feel like he has any transferable gameplay skills to other killers or even other games?
Okay, in terms of other games, funny you mentioned that. I always think of his revealing system similar to a lot of stealth games. Like that's how I generally tend to describe it. Where it's like, you have to be in clear vision of the survivor in order to reveal them. They're sort of like NPCs. As like, if you crouch behind something when they're looking at you, they're just like, oh, it must have been a ghost, must have been the wind, sort of like that. So, I always suggest like playing like, sneaking up to them similar to like games like The Last of Us or like Hitman or something like that. I'd say like, he's an M1 killer, so obviously there is like a lot of skill in that in general that transfers to every killer, which I don't think like a lot of people like focus on too much, because I think like being an M1 killer, there's so much like skill in that alone. Sure, it's like you don't have like a power that is unique to that killer to like practice. It still is a mechanic to master that is on every single killer. I guess that always transfers to every killer.
Yeah, your fundamentals for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I was saying earlier that with the I think there's a lot of like similar aspects with lean stalking, which being able to like slide off objects while leaning so you can like reposition if they're trying to reveal you. It's a very similar angle to like hug techs as like Blight or like Old Blight and like Wesker and all that. which I think a lot of people don't realize too. It's not like fast paced like those killers, but it's a similar mechanic, which is always really cool, which I think they'd appreciate.
Alrighty, so my penultimate question for you, SK, is how long do you think Dead by Daylight is going to last?
I think like it's still. It's still growing. Like, I think this year seems like it's going to be a pretty big year for DBD with like, like FNAF coming in as well. I don't see any like signs of it stopping. I think it just depends on like how games as a whole are like looking and all that. In terms of like, DBD competitors, I don't think there's ever going to be like, I've always said, yeah, like when everyone comes in, people always like, oh, this one's going to kill it. But the thing is like, they never, like, that's not what they're trying to do. Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all that, they're live service games. They have a $50 price tag. They're just trying to make their money off that initial purchase. They're not like, if they wanted a DBD competitor, like, I've always thought it's got to be like the only thing that can really compete with it is if it was like a big studio game with a shit ton of budget and it, was free to play. So like what Marvel Rivals did with Overwatch, to be a competitor.
Yeah.
But DVD is already a bit of a niche, so I don't see like any big studio really making a DVD competitor. It's like, it's so yeah, I think it's got free domain for the whole, like for the genre for now. Just depends on how they play. I'd say it's got at least another 5 years left, maybe more, depending on like how they handle their releases and all that. Right. But yeah, it's looking pretty good for DVD so far.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are excited for FNAF for sure. Okay.
For sure.
Very last question, very last thing. What would be the straw that breaks the camel's back for you that would make you quit Ghostface forever?
Quitting Ghostface forever? I don't know if I'd ever quit him altogether. I think if they ever did do like, rework if they rework, yeah, I enjoy the killer, like the idea of the killer, like all his fundamentals overall, and I don't see behavior like ever changing that. Like I think I'm sure they're like happy with Ghostface where he is right now, maybe buff him a little, but yeah, I don't think he's ever going to be getting like a rework to the same vein as like Freddy or something. Yeah, I don't think that will ever happen. Maybe if they ever did that and they turned him into a completely different killer, maybe I'd swap to another one. Yeah, I don't think I honestly don't see them ever doing that because I think he is in a sort of good spot right now. Yeah, maybe if it's like there's another killer that's like a shit ton more enjoyable, but so far I've still sort of enjoyed Ghostface, so I don't see any reason to swap mains.
All right. Well, thank you for your time and for coming on to the episode here as the Ghostface. But now this little endgame section, I'm just gonna, let you tell people where to find you, post all your links. You can share if you're working on something that's upcoming, and the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, my name is, so I guess I do stream on Twitch, which is mostly more my main thing. Yeah, so you can find my Twitch on SK_. You do YouTube as well. I am actually working on a more like sort of full in-depth Ghostface guide, which a lot of my older ones are a bit dated, so I'm making it like, all out. I've been a bit like slacking with that. Yeah, that's on the way now, which should be released pretty soon or in a few weeks or so, depending on how long it takes, I guess. But yeah, Twitter's SKAU. I think that's like for the most part everything. I guess it depends.
Right, well, thank you so much for coming on, and to everyone watching, listening, being fed information via a mind link. I appreciate your support. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening, noon, morning, night, whatever it might be, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. So have a lovely rest of your time, and bye-bye.
Bye.